Thank you to the panelists. It was a great start to this morning, as Ganesh said. Let's move on to our next session, which is a conversation on India's role in information technology and digital diplomacy. India's remarkable journey in the realm of information technology is nothing short of a paradigm shift. From humble beginnings to becoming a global powerhouse, the growth story of India's IT industry is awe-inspiring. Today, it stands as a beacon of innovation, excellence, and resilience, contributing significantly to the country's economic growth and global competitiveness. So as we reflect on India's IT success story, we're going to learn about the valuable lessons that can be gleaned for other nations, especially with collaborative efforts with international partners and leveraging technology for efficiency, transparency, and accountability. We're going to hear about key initiatives that have also facilitated the adoption of digital technologies on a massive scale. And you all know that on a grassroots level, the penetration of IT has been nothing short of revolutionary. From street vendors to self-employed entrepreneurs, the ubiquitous case of and use of WhatsApp, payment apps, and other digital platforms has democratized access to technology and really given economic empowerment and social inclusion. So it's my pleasure to introduce our two distinguished speakers for this insightful discussion, Kiran Karnik and Dinanath Kholkar, who will be in conversation. Can we give them a big round of applause? And may I ask them both to come up? I'm sure they need no introduction, but Kiran Karnik is a former NASSCOM president, and he's been instrumental in shaping India's IT landscape, promoting brand India globally, and spearheading groundbreaking projects that have truly impacted society. His insights, in addition, garnered from his leadership roles at organizations such as Discovery Networks India and ISRO, offer a unique perspective on India's IT trajectory. Kiran Karnik. Big round of applause, please. Remember, applause is free, and AI cannot do it for us. Joining him is Dinanath Kholkar, independent advisor and former senior vice president of TCS. He's the chair of ITES committee at the Maratha Chamber and the PIC research track lead on science, technology, and national innovation ecosystem. So today our speakers will not only explore India's past achievements, but also the emerging trends and future possibilities in IT and digital diplomacy. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to both of them.
Thank you, Vandana, and it's great to be here again at AED. Kiran, thank you for joining us. I just want to call out a few words. ISRO, broadcasting, higher education, IT and outsourcing, NASSCOM, board member, author, inspiration, and Pradeep just yesterday added his role model. So if you put all of this together, that's Kiran Karnik for you. So please give him a round of applause. So Kiran, it's absolutely an honor to be here with you and engaging with you on this discussion. Let's start talking about your book. You wrote a very interesting book on coalition of competitors, where you talked about the story of Indian IT and NASSCOM. You have really seen the entire industry from very close. And you've also worked with quite a few of the senior leaders, including Mr. Kohli and many of my senior leaders. So just walk us through that journey, because I think it's very important for many of the youngsters out here to know about how did we become such a powerhouse. And it will be good to hear from you directly and share your perspectives around how that journey has been.
Thank you, Dina. And special thanks to Ambassador Bambawale and the PIC for inviting me here today. Pleasure to speak with all of you and share a few thoughts. Dina, thank you very much for that very generous introduction. The IT story, if I get straight away into it, to me starts long back. And don't worry, I'm not going to make this a long story, but it starts with the basic foundation of creating the educational infrastructure in this country and the technological infrastructure that made a certain segment of society, admittedly a limited one, technologically oriented and educated. The talent base was there. And then we had some tremendous pioneers. I don't want to name all of them because it would be unfair to name some and not others, who saw a tremendous opportunity here and were very innovative. The biggest innovation to me was the leaders of the software industry who, unlike all other industries at that time, said, yes, we are new, we are nascent, we are globally starting very late, but we don't want protection. And people thought there's something wrong. I mean, what are you saying? Zero import duty on software? I mean, you guys are either crazy or you don't understand basic economics 101. And we have some economic giants here. They might appreciate the point of saying some protective tariff, which is what we are doing nowadays in some of the industries. And the software industry said, no, we will compete because that's the only way we will survive. The domestic market is too small. We need to look at the world. And the only way we can survive in the world is if we're competitive. And that was the start, of the industry's mindset. The other critical part was, thank you for mentioning the title of my book. I like that title. I like that summary of what the industry stood for and NASSCOM took forward in a big way, which is that it's a coalition of competitors. These are people who compete intensely on every order. The big companies, the small companies in the country or in the global markets. But yet they come together for certain things of common good. And that coalition of building partnerships, of building links, of trying to work together for a greater common good, of in many ways growing the pie, and then of course competing intensely on who gets what, and not trying to see this is an existing one, how much do I get? So I think this foresightedness was key. The third element, of course, was the capability of our talent. Young Indians took this up as a challenge, worked on it, and created a tremendous energy and dynamism which frankly swept the world. And finally, the business model. And this is something we under-recognize. We talk of innovation a great deal, and we need a lot of invention, first of all, which starts with R&D, and innovation in products, in a whole range of kinds of ways we do things. But our biggest innate ability is innovation in business models. And this the IT industry did wonderfully, not just outsourcing, but offshoring. If you can do this with your secretary 5 feet away with only a wall dividing you, why not do it 10,000 miles away? What's the difference with good communication links? Finally, and I said finally the last one, but I think the ecosystem, and to that, much under-recognized, and particularly some of my colleagues in industry say half in jest that we grew because the government neglected us. Not true at all in my view. The government played a key role in creating a policy framework and an ecosystem that was supportive to this industry. So these to me, Dina, I can go on, but these to me are the key lessons, some of which are India-specific, but many of which are very useful for countries around the world who are trying to see how they can get into not only this, but a whole host of new industries.
Absolutely, Kiran. It's amazing to see the different elements of this success story. And also, you did mention about the cooperation and the collaboration with the competitors. And I've been part of some of the NASSCOM committees, and we were competing on deals, but at the same time we were standing up there in New York and building up brand India. So it was quite a good experience that I have seen this happen. But let's.
Sorry, if I might interrupt you for a minute. Yeah. I mentioned talent, education as a starting base from the early years. 70 years ago, I might say, when the IITs and others came up. But you've spent a lot of time on education, and both from TCS and now working with IEEE through PIC and other institutions to see the education industry interface. And this has been key. We'd love to hear your own experience from, you might say, the other side, from the corporate side and elsewhere, on the whole education scenario in this area.
So I have been working almost 20 years. I've been volunteering through IEEE in various roles. I've been the chair for IEEE Pune section. I've been very passionate about teaching. So I've done classes at College of Engineering Pune and done workshops with other colleges and things like that. One of the things which, when I moved into Pune in '96, there were about 20 odd engineering colleges. If you look at the number of colleges which are there today, it's about 130 engineering colleges. So we've scaled up quite significantly. But the biggest concern I have seen is that we've not necessarily looked at quality. So the quality of education which probably many of us in this room were very fortunate to see the younger generation is not necessarily getting that type of quality of education. And I would say that rather than looking at it only from an academic institution point of view, I also look at it from an industry point of view. Is industry doing enough? Is industry contributing? I keep on going and doing these lectures, but are there many others who are wanting to do that? I think industry does require to participate. One of the key things which I lament always is the amount of money that industry is putting into research. And that has to go into the research ecosystem which is there in the academic institutions. And when I compare it with the stuff that happens with, even in India, within, say, the IIT network and some of the elite institutions, that's not the case. And, if you look at the scale at which we have grown as an industry, we needed every institution to be at a level which is an IIT. So there is clearly an opportunity which is there. And I feel that there are various things which are responsibility. It's you can't call it as a corporate social responsibility. It's actually your responsibility to run your business. And if you're really going to scale up, it definitely requires that. And I feel that organizations like PIC as well as various other institutions are playing an active role in getting industry leaders to participate, to volunteer their time and things like that. But let me, take a look at the industry as it is today, and we'll take this question, and then I'll also open up for questions from the audience. But the IT industry is expected to double its size by 2030, reach a 500 billion number. So it's like a astounding number. The sector itself accounts for a very large percentage of the India GDP. I'm sure it'll definitely touch a 10%. And clearly, we have to sustain this momentum, take on the challenges, and look at new avenues. So, where do you see the challenges and the opportunities? Given the type of growth that we are seeing and the growth we are anticipating, do you foresee there are challenges? Do you foresee that there are opportunities that we should look at as industry leaders?
Well, I think there are huge challenges ahead, Dina. But let me preface that by saying this industry has always faced huge challenges and successfully overcome them. When I first joined NASSCOM 2001, so-called 9/11 had just happened in the US. And the big story of the 2000 bug, the Y2K bug, was over. And very good friends told me, you're a complete idiot, which we know anyway, but joining an industry like this at this time, this is a downhill industry. It's over. It's seen its peak. The US market is uncertain, your biggest market. And on top of that, the Y2K boost that you got is over. And the internet boom has become the internet bust. So, miss. But the industry not only grew from there, but grew very rapidly. And we've seen time and again, I won't go through each one, something new coming up and people feeling that this is going to be the end. The industry has continuously reinvented itself, innovated, changed, moved on. And I see that happening now. The big challenges now, and you heard a fantastic session just now before this, is what is changing in terms of the technological landscape and what it might do. We went through this in some ways in a rudimentary sense when the big so-called BPO industry at that time, the call centers, either moved elsewhere for various reasons, cultural, language, etc., but also automation. At that level, many years ago, we're seeing now a much, much, much bigger challenge in terms of what AI in general can do. And I think this is a challenge. I'm confident the industry is on it, on top of it, will overcome. But this is one big challenge. The other one is concerns on a broader scale. And we've talked so far of IT software, but in the whole IT area, the ICT area, you might say, is the whole supply chain problem. There was a lot of discussion on that yesterday. I don't want to get back to repeating any of it. But there are concerns about concentrations, about locations, about what is our role in that, about where the value add comes from, on how we move up the value chain and really do things here. And these are challenges which call for cooperation, and we'll touch on that later, between countries. And this is something in the IT industry, in terms of its DNA, has inherited very well. How do you work with others for mutual benefit? The whole IT software industry is based on bringing value to your customers and their customers. So it's the customer's customer who gains in the end. And that's something I think we have to absorb much more deeply as we move ahead. Despite what many people see as deglobalization, the interdependency has become so strong. And therefore, the ability to work with other partners, be it in country or outside, is critical. And this is something the IT industry has proved very well. It's a capability that we have as a country. We have shown it in many other areas beyond the technological area. And that's something we might touch on a little bit in terms of the diplomacy and working together. But certainly, I think a very big challenge is AI and Gen AI. And you heard some of it, so again, we don't have to go through that again as a big challenge. The other one is really the challenge of how you bring the digital revolution, not just to people, and we might touch on that later, but to the whole chain of smaller companies, smaller industries, which are not in the IT sector. These are MSMEs, which are a huge contribution. And you have worked in this whole area, working with MSMEs also, Dina. I'd love to hear some of your experiences and what you think will happen as we try to digitize in these millions of companies that do small things, manufacture, services, this, that, which are all very, very small.
So, Kiran, I moved out of the corporate world just about a couple of months back, but I've been spending a lot of time with the MSMEs to the Maratha Chamber of Commerce, Industries and Agriculture. And I meet quite a few MSMEs. We have an IoT cluster. We have various other digital transformation programs that we are running with the MSMEs. And it was very interesting to see the level of digital penetration being very low. And that gives me a significant amount of hope on opportunities that are there, which are untapped. I'll give you a very simple example. We, as a large organization, we focused on those Fortune 1000, Fortune 2000 companies, which are at the apex of the entire supply chain. Now, if you look at it, they are all going through a significant amount of digital transformation. But if the companies which are their suppliers, their channels, don't adopt digital technologies, they're not necessarily going to bring up the value chain significantly. So I feel that there is a huge amount of opportunity. While we talk about AI, I think the fundamental things people are missing out is ability to get data in a digital form. And if you actually go across, Pune has about 20,000 small and medium businesses, and I've been visiting some of them. They still have a lot of data put on whiteboards. So I've been actually challenging some of the solution providers to take me to companies where they've got rid of the dashboards, the whiteboards which are there, and they can see things on their mobile phone or on tablet. But I feel that that opportunity is huge. It is also an opportunity for the banking sector, because I feel that the banking sector is not necessarily looking at this as a transformation where they can provide those type of capital for the transformation, things like that, because payback in some of the cases is quite phenomenal. I've seen some examples where a digital transformation has led to a significant amount of productivity. The production capacity has almost become 150% of what they're doing. And these are the type of opportunities which are also there, which needs to be looked at. So it's not just about technology. It's also about how others in the ecosystem participate. And just last point I would like to tell is about policy interventions. We all talk about climate change. We talk about carbon dioxide emissions and things like that. And we also talk about renewable energy in form of solar and various things. But nobody's really looking at, can we save energy? So I actually have been working with one of the startups which is focused on just saving energy. It's quite phenomenal. And the payback time of the implementation is just 9 months. Just 9 months. Solar panel implementation takes about 3 years of return. So I am actually currently working on, can we create a policy of intervention? And I've been interacting with the commissioner of Pimpri-Chinchwad to look at whether we can create some nudges, experiment on some of these things so that we have data points which can be taken up for policy changes. So I think it's important to look at, when you look at some of the technology changes, you have to also look at what in the ecosystem can enable it faster, and what can potentially be the policy interventions which can be there, which can make a difference. And again, it's not only about just using technology, but it's also making a sustainable transformation in general.
I think that's critical, Dina. But what's exciting to me, particularly in terms of what you mentioned, is the fact of what was discussed in the earlier panel, and I think Rajesh said it, that the new technologies, in fact, many technologies even earlier, tend to help those who have the most headroom for growth. Yeah. And therefore, I'm very hopeful that as AI makes its way in,
the other thing
it'll be smaller ones that can grow faster.
The other thing which I missed out was most governments are investing significantly on the digital public infrastructure, as you're aware. And most of these companies need to align towards using that. And that also creates a lot of opportunities. So we should look at these type of opportunities which will create jobs, which can enable the overall economy, because that's the type of change that we will see.
Just one comment on that, Dina, and then I have one more question for you. I don't know if you want to get to audience questions also in between. But, you talked of DPI, and this is phenomenal. And again, the DPI in relation to what was done by India in the G20 in terms of cooperation, making our DPIs available to others. We might come to that later. But the DPIs have done 2 or 3 tremendous things. One is the fact that you mentioned bank credit for these companies, capital investment. The digitization will help them to have a record which will make them credit worthy. There will be a credit record of transactions, which today many of them don't have. And it's so easy now. The second is that DPIs are becoming very inclusive. So you don't have to know technology today to be at the bottom of the pyramid in the socioeconomic order in education to be able to use the DPIs. Many of them are symbol-based, many of them are very simple, and anybody can begin to use them and be integrated in the system or to benefit from it, like the direct benefit transfers, which go straight in. So I think there are huge possibilities there. But, and this is a question for you now, these DPIs and the whole digitization process has created a great deal of energy in the economy, but it's also created a great deal of dependence of critical sectors and even very basic things like individuals receiving pensions on the digital framework. And in this context, the concerns about cyber crime in the broadest sense are worrisome. I don't know, you've done work in this area, you recently launched a fantastic initiative, you might want to spend a minute or two talking about that, but what do you see as the real dangers in terms of the extent of digitization, and how can cyber criminals begin to take advantage of that and begin to give it a bad name and create problems for both individuals, companies, and indeed countries?
So I think there are 2 things which I would like to put side by side. Obviously, one is the resilience as far as cybersecurity is concerned, but it's also about data privacy and related norms which are there. But I just want to take a couple of minutes on the initiative that you mentioned. We just launched MCCI cybersecurity initiative in partnership along with the US consulate. This actually is being done as part of the India trade agreement, where they wanted to focus on technology and do some things with specific cities. So when we started the discussion, we create an aspiration that let's look at Pune being a center of excellence for cybersecurity. So anybody in India wants to look at which is the destination where you should go to for cybersecurity expertise, Pune should be that. And we created a fantastic ecosystem. We have IIT Bombay's Trust Lab, we have a few academic institutions, we have the knowledge partners that we have in form of academic institutions, some of the product companies which are here, startups. So we've got that all put together. But the key thing which we wanted to focus on is, again, going back to the education. We want to build excellence in cybersecurity education, and it covers the entire spectrum, right from school kids awareness to college students to engineering students who are studying cybersecurity, to people who want to aspire to become cybersecurity professionals. Also, we want to look at a lot of, we looked at the demand supply. Just to give you a number, there is 3.5 million jobs in cybersecurity which are available. And I was having a discussion with one of the persons who is running a very specific initiative on getting women who have taken a career break to back into the workforce. And I said, why not look at training them on cybersecurity? You can actually get a good advantage through this initiative. So overall, these type of initiatives will make a lot of difference. And it will also help people appreciate that, and the feedback into the digital public infrastructure of India would also get enhanced quite significantly, because now you have a much aware consumer who knows the type of risks which are there, and the feedback will definitely help it in a big way. So hope that gives you a perspective. But I'll come back on that point on digital diplomacy. And if you really look at, we had seen the type of amplification that was done during the G20. And India clearly stood out with the type of the digital public infrastructure. I think one of the most talked about stalls was that of the digital mission and various things and stuff like that. And give us a perspective, now that we are seen as leaders in this area, and we've done a lot of work in collecting all the information related to digital public infrastructures of different countries. And it's about our overall philosophy that, we are very inclusive. Digital is making things much more inclusive, the point that you mentioned. But how do you see this panning out? And how do you think the overall relationship building with different countries, and especially the G20 community, will help?
I think this is both an opportunity and a necessity, Dina. A necessity first, because you just talked of cybercrime, and this is a global phenomenon. There are no boundaries for cyber criminals because the digital is all, the internet is all pervasive, and anybody from anywhere, be it an individual or an organized group, or indeed a state-funded group with plausible deniability, so to say, can try to hack into your systems, steal your data, play around with your digital infrastructure. So this is a problem which countries around the world are facing. And the only way to look at it is to treat this as a global problem. Just as we're now doing in the climate area, we recognize now action may be a bit tardy, but the world as a whole recognizes that global warming is something which all countries have to tackle together in some way. Cybercrime, there is recognition, but action a bit slow. And to me, it seems this is both a need for India, given the attacks that we face, but also an opportunity for India to play a more active role. We showed the positive side of the whole digital arena at the G20, showcased it. It was greatly appreciated. And many countries, let's not forget the G20 is only the top 20 developed countries. Thanks to India's initiative, this time, many of our neighbors and indeed countries from the south, including the African Union, were there. So this is an opportunity for us to work together with these countries to try and see how can we take further both the digital revolution, which helps people and countries, but also the concerns, be it cybercrime, be it regulation about AI. And again, the previous session touched on the question of regulation, no regulation, and what do we do. But these are global problems, and there's no way we can tackle them without putting in a global framework. And to me, digital diplomacy, in which India very rightfully is both well-placed and in terms of capability, well-regarded to be able to take an initiative and begin to do things. And this is something which we've started many years ago. We're trying to help other countries upgrade their IT capabilities in small ways. I think it can be taken much further now, much further. At the industry and business level, already, NASSCOM has played an outstanding role. And, Ganesh and Rajesh are both here. Ganesh is former chair and Rajesh is the present chair of NASSCOM, who could speak much more to it. But I think there's both a business-to-business possibility there and a government-to-government possibility to undertake digital diplomacy where we help other countries, work with them, and each country benefits from it. India, as I said, is very well positioned.
So just to call out, during the G20 New Delhi Leaders Declaration, they agreed on developing a G20 framework for systems of DPI. Plus, they further welcomed India's plan to build and maintain a global digital public infrastructure repository, GDPIR, a virtual repository of DPI to use by other G20 members and beyond. So very clearly, India as a soft power, if you may look at, we were all known for cricket, Bollywood, the Indian cuisine, yoga, Ayurveda. I think the entire digital journey is definitely placing us. But one very big concern, and I just want to call this out, and maybe we'll take a test out here. How many of you are students out here? Students, researchers. How many of you know about IndiaStack.global? And this applies to everybody, not only just the students. How many know about IndiaStack.global? So actually, it's quite surprising, isn't it? We have beaten the drum till the drum is even broken down at G20 about India Stack. And it's actually quite shocking that our student community and even a lot of professionals are not aware of how we are building up this India Stack. So one of the things, since you asked me about the education ecosystem, I've been doing a lot of evangelizing of the work TCS used to do in the entire digital transformation journey with the government. I realized that a lot of the students are not aware of it. So I started doing this as evangelization of digital public infrastructure, the Digital India Mission, and various solutions which are being brought together. So clearly there is an opportunity, and maybe we should look at this as a avenue. In fact, one of the things that we are clearly looking at doing as part of Pune International Center is actually to organize a one-day event where we get people from the Digital India Mission and do the evangelization with these students. So I will pause over here, and I will have one last question before we conclude. But I will, we have about 10 minutes. I'll take questions from the audience. We'll take one at the end first. Uma will take 3 questions.
Hi, my name is Vikas. I run a small software development company. I think continuing with your point about India Stack, can you throw more light on ONDC specifically and how it may pan out? Definitely it will help a lot of people here also, and for me to understand how it will and where it can be use cases for going ahead.
So this question is to both of you, or either of you can answer this question. Actually, there is quite a bit of concern in the campuses around the country with respect to their placement opportunities, given the current industry scenario and AI in particular. So what would be your thoughts on how should educational institutions be looking at admissions, skilling, and how should these students be thinking about their future with respect to the opportunities in the IT industry for them in the near future?
Yeah, good morning all. My name is Rahul Renavikar and I'm a member of PIC working on tax reforms. My question is for Dr. Karnik. Your book, I have read that. You talked about coalition of the competition, but now we have competition from other countries. Southeast Asia and others also are good competition to the Indian IT industry. So do you believe that we should now go international as far as the coalition is concerned, whether it's a good idea to have all the coalition partners from other countries? That's the question for you, Doctor. Thank you.
Yeah, so the ONDC one, because it'll probably require a lot more detailing, but one of the things which we do, and we will definitely take it up at MCCI, we have been looking at some of these platforms that the government is rolling out, doing very specific programs for the members, so that they get an understanding of what these platforms are and how it can benefit you and what type of enablement you require and things like that. So I'll not go into the details, but we can definitely take a discussion outside. We had one of the ONDC heads come over here. We had a workshop in PKC, Pune Knowledge Cluster. So there are some of these events that we are organizing where we are getting these people to come and talk about this and also interact with the industry. So we'll take that. I'll take Uma's question on the education front. So I'll tell you, specifically, I'm giving examples on the cyber security one. So I mentioned about the demand that is there, and I visited a few cyber security programs which are there in some of the colleges. And I was actually quite surprised. Okay, honestly, they are just having one more class created. There is nothing of excellence or nothing related to cyber security at the level of depth that I would expect. So I asked them a very simple question about, the students, second year, third year students, which are the top 10 cyber crimes that you have heard or cyber security threats that you have seen being reported. And they had absolutely no clue. So I'm just giving you this perspective that I think it's also important for us to look at what should be really be driven in making those changes and stuff like that. I asked another question, have you interacted with CISOs of companies? Do you know what it really means to be in cybersecurity as a professional? So I think education institutions also need to change the way they want to look at. Any excellent student will always be on demand, okay? And they have to look at creating excellence at scale. There is no other alternative but to create excellence at scale. And there will be enough takers. As I said, 3.5 million jobs in cybersecurity. We had a roundtable of US companies which are based in Pune when the US Consulate General was here earlier this week. And everybody had that same thing, that we have a lot of demand and they want to set up centers. They want to do some core area of work. So there is definitely opportunities. But also one more thing we have been doing is we are looking at how do we create FDPs for the teaching staff. Okay, so keep in mind, many of these people are still teaching the same traditional way. You have to look at what can be changed. And, we looked at, I have a person who is an MCCI fellow who works with me, and he's been looking at creating and curating content, talking to people who go and from the industry and going and doing lectures. We're getting some of the best practices that they're using in innovation in teaching. So I think there are various things which we are looking at. And as I said, we are working closely with 3 or 4 of our knowledge partners, IIT Bombay, VJTI, DIIT, and COEP, to create what will be an education excellence. We have also got specialized training companies, which are very specialized only on training and hands-on in cybersecurity. So I just took an example on cybersecurity because I've been working very closely on that. But as I said, education institutions have to really look at not just creating quantity, but that level of excellence and quality in what they will produce for the industry. Your question.
Yeah, just a quick addition, and Uma, we should discuss this separately. Last year, the IT industry added 60,000 jobs, low for the IT industry, but it's been a difficult year, though there was growth. But the important thing to me is that the growth now is happening in user industries. So it's wrong to look at just the IT industry. And, historically, whenever you go through a change of new technologies, there's a bit of a dip and there are new skills required, both in conjunction. So existing skills and the slight dip is going to create a problem. I may be sounding pessimistic. It is for a year or two, unless people quickly pivot to new areas. Now, some of the institutions I'm involved with, you mentioned cybersecurity, are doing things like computer science plus social sciences. It's critical. More and more, all of us read about it, things like brain implants. And what does it mean? There are ethics, there are neuroscience-related things. What do we do in these newer areas where there is demand, where worldwide, globally there's demand, and globally there's shortages of people, particularly in countries which are developed because they have aging populations, they need younger people. So I think there are opportunities there, but in new areas. The existing ones of, just doing, morning example, code writing is going to just decrease hugely. It's not going to go away, it's going to decrease. So I think there are things there which need to be done and looked at differently. Rahul, to your question, again, very briefly, just a sentence or two. Yeah, what you implied, I do see that as the way ahead. That again, like companies in India, countries will and should compete, but there is scope for coalitions. I mentioned some examples, coalitions on regulations or guidelines, be it AI or be it newer areas altogether. I mentioned brain transplants or brain implants being one of them. We need to look at what we need to do globally because, you can have a one country regulation, somebody goes somewhere else and gets it done. Is that good, bad? What kind of constraints do we need? Rise in genetic engineering. We've run out of time, I think, but just one addition to that, and that is that, as we look at some of these things globally, we need to see what role India can play. And I want to repeat that we are a leader in many of these areas, and we can play a lead in terms of the diplomacy as we go around, certainly with the neighboring countries, but much wider than that. Asia and much beyond, the global south, why not? And with developed countries too.
Kiran, I wouldn't let you go without asking you this question. And you started off with ISRO, and I'm sure you are very proud of what they've accomplished, especially in the recent times. A combination of space tech and information technology. Just a few comments on that.
Well, just a couple of sentences. IT is all pervasive. It's like the air we breathe. And certainly space uses a great deal of information technology, both the software and hardware. There are limitless possibilities, and it's a very, very exciting area. And this conjunction of areas, again, to Uma's question, is where the new jobs, the new excitement, the new breakthroughs, and the new exciting ideas are going to happen.
Thank you, Kiran. It's absolutely a pleasure to have you with us at AED. Thank you for being us and delighting us with all your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Dina. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much to Kiran and to Dina for a fantastic conversation. Can I request Pradeep Bhargava from Pune International Centre to come and give a small token of appreciation? So I think the conclusion is the world has been watching India. Now India needs to continue to watch India with the development. Padma Shri Kiran Karnik. And Dinanath Kholkar. Thank you so much.